This girl never imagined that by simply not wanting to work overtime, she would go from being a receptionist to a mysterious powerhouse capable of defeating dungeon bosses. It turned out that as long as no one else could clear a dungeon, Arena would go in alone to defeat the boss. However, this wasn't a sustainable solution, because as she defeated the bosses, more and more smaller monsters would gather. Adventurers would come to Arena for bounty tasks, which increased her workload as a receptionist. Eventually, Arena had to step in herself. But over time, this led to Arena gaining terrifying strength without even realizing it. One day, there was a dungeon that no one had cleared, not even the strongest adventurer team in the guild, who couldn't defeat the boss inside. To avoid overtime, Arena had no choice but to go in herself and defeat the boss. But how could she, a mere receptionist, possess such power? Jet told Arena to leave, but when he saw her weapon, he was shocked. Arena's hammer was the symbol of an executioner. It turned out that Arena's deeds had become legendary. Whenever a dungeon went unsolved, a mysterious figure would show up alone to defeat the boss. Normally, adventurers formed teams to battle bosses, but the executioner always fought alone, and no matter how strong the boss was, they were no match for the executioner. Unfortunately, since Arena always disguised herself during battles, no one had ever seen her face, not even her gender. The only identifying feature was the huge warhammer she carried. While Jet was still in shock, the boss had already been defeated by Arena. Jet's team was still in awe, but for Arena, this was just another normal day. After defeating the boss, she could finally go home. Before leaving, Arena took a glance behind her, but she didn't realize that it was that very glance that revealed her face to Jet. When Jet returned, he posted a missing person request. However, since the dungeon was so dark and Arena was disguised, Jet only knew that the executioner was a woman with black hair and green eyes. As Jet was still figuring things out, a gust of wind blew, and Jet saw the back of a woman. With black hair and green eyes, she resembled the executioner he had seen earlier. Jet followed her, only to find that she had entered a guild counter. At the same time, Arena was in a good mood because solving the dungeon meant she wouldn't have to work overtime. But to her shock, someone walked in. It was Jet.
Ja?
Arena had planned to pretend not to know him, but when she learned that Jet had seen her face during the dungeon, she became nervous. She had specifically covered her face with a hat, and the dungeon had been so dark. She didn't understand how Jet could have seen her. Jet explained that his eyes and nose were particularly sharp. Arena realized she couldn't hide anymore. She asked Jet to meet her somewhere else to talk, and Jet agreed. He handed Arena something. It turned out that this was the loot dropped after defeating the boss. Jet wanted Arena to take it, but the next moment, Arena crushed the loot with her bare hands. This shocked Jet because the item wasn't just any material, it was an extremely hard item used for making relic weapons. Even more shocking was that Arena threatened Jet, telling him that if he didn't leave, he would be the next boss to be dealt with. Jet couldn't understand why Arena was acting like this. He saw her preparing to leave, so he used his skill to hold her back. This made Arena furious. Jet didn't understand why Arena was doing this, but for Arena, she couldn't let her life as a receptionist end like this. To ensure her peaceful life, she now had to eliminate Jet. Jet stopped her and asked where her weapon came from. He wanted to know if it was a divine skill. It turned out that divine skills were legendary, dreamlike abilities far stronger than the highest level skills available today. However, no one had been able to use them for a long time. Because of this, Jet really wanted Arena to join his team. He told her that he needed her. Arena warned Jet not to bother her, but seeing how persistent Jet was, she finally explained the advantages of her receptionist job.